everybody. Thank you for stopping by. I am going to do another part, just a short meeting, maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes on negotiation skills. And I'm doing this to help real estate agents, but really this could help you with anything in life. It can help you with a difficult person. It can help you get your 9-year-old son to go to bed on time. Negotiation is a skill that we all use. It's just a lot of times we just don't take time to really think about it as negotiation. And negotiation is a whole profession within itself. And there's high level negotiation, of course, with business when they take over another business or they buy another business. But we use negotiation in real estate all the time. And I don't know that we really ever think about how important it is. And there's a lot of things that have changed in negotiation over the 30 years that I've been in real estate. So just a little bit of a recap on what we talked about last week was that you can learn and improve your negotiation skills, and you should, because it's part of your skills that people that hire you are paying you for to negotiate the best price you can on a house, or just to win the house, or to negotiate your best price when you sell. So negotiation is really, really a great skill for a real estate agent, but it's also a great skill just for anybody in business to have, period. So the things we talked about last week are, number one, negotiation skill in being a great negotiator is to listen actively. And when I say active listening, what I mean is when most real estate agents go to a listing appointment, they can't wait to start talking and say, this is what we do and this is what we're there for. But actually, most of the time in a listing presentation, you should be gathering information and finding out exactly what your seller wants to do, what their goals are, how they feel about the process. And believe me, if you're sitting there thinking about a fight that you had with a child before you came into the listing appointment, or something that went wrong with the car, or just something arbitrarily, they can feel whether or not you're listening. And active listening is sitting on the edge of your seat, hanging on every single word. So active listening is a lot more intense than most real estate agents take it for. In high level negotiations, I've read that they have like 2 or 3 people listening to the same thing every time. I've even read recently where they go to a foreign country, they will always have a translator. Even if the person understands English perfectly, they want that time to listen to it and to translate in their mind and to actively listen and hang on every single word. So I think when you go in a listing appointment, it's really, really important to figure out what your seller wants to accomplish and what his timing is, what's the most important thing to him. And, there's always that listing appointment that you go into where they have an outrageous request, and they're just asking you to sell the house for $3 or 10 cents or something. And you can always just get them off guard by starting with a big smile on your face and saying, I'm sorry, I don't know how I can do that, and do all the marketing and sift through all the offers that we will bring in and make sure the strength of the offer and the proof of funds are there. I don't know how I could be fair to you and give you what you need in this market, or give you the highest and best, if I didn't take time to do all that. And I sure can't do it for $3. So I think that there's a way to master saying no. And I want you to think about that. I want you to think about the art of saying no gently. And we're going to talk about that a little bit. But a lot of negotiators feel like that no is the place that negotiation really starts. At least you know where you are. You start with no, and you've got no place to go but up from there. So it's not a failure. It just means I'm not ready right now. I want to wait, or I haven't been given enough information. So when somebody tells you no, it's up to you to regroup and have the right approach to come back and still be in the game. So the right approach, and I'm going to give you this little formula. And by the way, I've got some great notes today. And if you'll email me after this, I'll send you I think there's about 7 or 8 pages of this. And it just is great to go over before you go into a tough negotiation. Really, I'm going to tell you about a negotiation I was in personally just in the last month or so, where I had to go back and take back an offer from a seller. In other words, the offer had been given and it was for X amount. And I had to go back and say, you know, the sellers really changed their mind. They've gone up 300,000, and that's not an easy thing to do. But I wrote out exactly what I was going to say, and I started with an apology. And I think what I started to say is, you know, if I were in your place, I would hate doing business with me, because I hate being in these situations where somebody has told me one thing and then, you know, in the next 5 minutes, it seems like they take it off the table. So always start with your hat in your hand. You know, keep humble when you're in the motion game. So here's the formula for, I think, the greatest way to get in step with your client. That's what we used to call it. It's getting in step with that person and making them feel that you're on their side, because you are on their side. You're not there necessarily. People can say, I'm going to be the expert and this, that, and the other. You're actually trying to do what the seller wants you to do, but you have to figure out exactly what he really wants you to do. So here's the formula. You got to identify what he wants. And then you have to articulate what he wants. And then you have to re-articulate it. In other words, you state it, and then you state it again. And then I want you to emotionally affirm the world according to your client. And if you just learn nothing else, you've got to get in step with that client's emotions. And when you do that, magic will happen. Magic will happen. So, you know, I've been perplexed in this particular market. You know, I've noticed, I don't know how many, but I know it's been thousands. It might have been a lot. It might have been tens of thousands. I really don't know. I can count just by looking down through MLS, I can count literally thousands of homes that have sold to investors. And if you're in the real estate game, you know, one of the things that they do is they go into a neighborhood, maybe a fast selling neighborhood, lower end neighborhood, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 neighborhood, and they offer what they call right now, or guaranteed sale, or whatever it is. And I've wondered why so many people take that. And there's actually a reason for it. It's called the prospect theory, and it means choosing between options that affect or include risk. In other words, if you owned a house and let's say you're in a neighborhood and you have an investor or somebody comes in and says, I'll give you $250,000 right now, close in 10 days on your house. And you've got another agent that says, you know what, if we put this on the market, I think you can get 325, 335, something like that. That's a lot of money. And that is happening every single day. And why is that happening? It's happening because people want the certainty rather than taking a chance on something good. Sometimes I think we want to avoid risk at all cost. And that's really hard for me, because I think my whole professional life has been about taking risk. But humans want to avoid risk. And that's why they take that sure thing. So you really ought to start all of your conversations with prospective sellers with finding out where they stand on that. Because sometimes when it's explained to them and they really understand, they'll choose to do the right way. And the right way is, if you're in the best sellers market there's been in probably 60 years, you should take a little bit of a risk that you could get more money on the open market than you could from a guaranteed sale or an investor that wants to hold your house or flip your house. So I just want to tell you that that's something I've noticed, and I wish I could magically stop it, because if I could, I would. But is when you're negotiating, I want to tell you what really wins the day. And I've seen it on my team with my top performers and everything, but it's just being pleasantly persistent, just being a smile on your face. You know, you can tell if somebody's in a positive mood by the way they're sitting in their chair, by the way, sometimes I use my hands a lot, but even if you don't use your hands, you're sitting at attention, you're positive, you're hanging on every word, and just if you're in a negotiation, sometimes I've been in negotiations that felt more like a wrestling match than it did a negotiation. Has that ever happened to anybody? Ask me any questions you want to. I can tell you about them. But a negotiation you ought not to feel like this has been a drama or a trauma. It ought to be pleasant. And they say the most powerful word that you can use in negotiation is fair. And that's kind of unusual, and it's kind of hard to use in this particular market because things are unfairly balanced towards the sellers than they are. But in any negotiation, you have to give your client, the counterpart, the illusion of control. And the way you do that is by listening. Don't make everything a showdown. I don't like dates that I will do this until such an amount of time. And I'll tell you one sure way to lose a negotiation, and that is to let somebody get under your skin and be, let's say, curt or rude to you or something like that. When somebody is that way, and they do it actually to get you off balance. But you got to learn to bite your tongue. You've got to learn to smile. You've got to learn to get your head back on track to stay in a positive negotiation mode. So I always like to ask open-end questions. And I think open-end questions are just the best way to relate to anybody. But especially to a client that you're going to help buy a house or that you're going to have sell a house. You've got to ask open-end questions. And I want to tell you that most of those start out with what, how, those are questions. And I want to tell you an interesting thing about the word why. Why it can actually be an accusatory question. So try to not start with why as much as you can, and just ask them things like, what do you see as the biggest challenge for you in the move up or move down or the move to the other state? How would you like to proceed? And I've got a whole list of these things because I think sometimes agents get into the trap of answering yes and no, asking yes and no questions. And that's not what you're there for. You're there to learn. You're there to understand where they are, and then you're there to get on the same page as them. I'll tell you an old saying, it's easier to ride a horse if you get on him going the same way he's going. In other words, don't get on him backwards, get on him, ride that horse which the way he's going. And that's what you've got to do with your clients, is you got to find out which way they're going. And of course, there's other things that you can do. One of them is mirroring. Mirroring works really well with an assertive type person. And that's where you are listening with rapt attention, and you might take the last three words that they say and say that over again to them. I really want to be in a house closer to my mom in South Carolina. And you might say, closer to your mom in South Carolina, and shake your head. And you're going to feel a little bit strange by doing that. But I'm telling you, that's another magic thing that you can do to get on the same page as your client. So when you're verbally abused, and this has happened in a listing appointment, you're verbally abused by people, don't counterattack, folks. It's never the right thing to do to attack back. It's really your presence and your poise and your state of mind that is going to get this deal done to the best of your ability. So ask a question, offer an apology. I'm sorry, did I come across that way? I'm sorry. It seems like you feel like my fee is exorbitant, or it seems like you feel like my fee is not justified. Let's talk about that. Asking a question and getting to that point with your client and not losing your cool is the very best way to stay on track. So let me ask you a question. When you're in a conversation, who's got control? Is it the person who's talking, or is it the person who's listening? And I would present to you that it's always the person who's listening that has control of the situation. So that's a great thing. I always tell my agents the art of the gentle no, and I told you I was going to get to that. And saying no, you can say it being nice, and you can say it being mean. And being mean is no, and just grimace after that. You don't want to do that. So one of the easiest ways to say no is, how am I supposed to do that? That's really a no. That's a soft no. The question is, how am I supposed to do that? The second way, let's say they offer you something less than you want. You can say, your offer is generous, but I'm sorry, I can't do that. And always say it softly. Your inflection is really, really important in the negotiation game. So the third gentle no is, I'm sorry, I just can't do that. Very soft. And then the last one, of course, is no, with a smile. Just no. So I want you to think about this, because this is really the art of negotiation. And that's what you're getting paid a lot of money to do in residential real estate. So make sure that you're on your top game. Another thing you can ask your client along the way is, or how are we on track? I've always taught my agents that if you don't walk out the door with the listing agreement signed, you don't have a deal. And, you know, everything has changed after COVID. People just don't, they're thinking, they're skittish. There's just a different business atmosphere. And there's a different business atmosphere because the business is imbalanced right now. I was telling somebody the other day that the average house stays on the market for 6 months in a normal market, and we're less than a month's inventory. So, you know, we're not in a normal market. So people are just not at the pace that they once were. So one way, if you're talking to somebody and they've told you that they're going to list with you, one of the ways you can help yourself solidify that yes is to get them to say it 3 times, a minimum of 3 times before you walk out the door. So if you can't get the listing contract signed, get them to agree to listing with you at whatever. I can't list until after my mother-in-law comes and visit. How will I know we're on track? How will I know if we've gotten off track? How will I be able to communicate with you? But keep on asking questions until you get them to commit to you for 3 times before you leave. And at least that will give you a better chance of succeeding with that particular client. Now, the last things I just want to go over are just about negotiation and negotiation in person. And if you have any questions, just type them into the questions or the board. But I want you to know that really communication and negotiation is really, they've proven this, is only 7% the words that you actually say. So there's a lot of talk in our business about scripts, and I'm not against scripts. Scripts, I guess, have their place. However, I'm more for getting in touch with the seller and the train that he wants to move on than I am about saying a certain script. Because when you've got a script in your mind, while that seller is talking, you're thinking about your script. And I want you to be thinking in rapt attention to how he's placing his words, the inflection of his body, you know, his voice, how he's looking at his wife. I want you to be in tune to what he's saying. And they have proven, it's a fact that only 7% of your 7% of any negotiation is the words that are said. And I would say that the scripts that are said. But 38% of it is the tone in which you say those words. So the tonality. And I always think you want to be friendly. You want to be soft. You want to have a smile on your face. I know I was talking recently and I wanted to stand up because I was on the phone. And so there was no way they were going to see me in person. So, but I just wanted more energy in my conversations. So 7% is your words. And the thing that you can do with your words is just to respect people. And then 38% is your tone, and you want it to be soft, you want it to be friendly, and you want it to be said with a smile. And then 55% of your negotiation is actually your body language. And that speaks to, how'd you dress that day? How'd your hair turn out? Did you have a bad hair day? How is your smile? How is your temperament? Are you on the edge of your seat? Or are you like a cat waiting to pounce as soon as they come with a paw so you can say the next thing? And then one of the last things I would tell you about is, you know, there's all kinds of cartoons out there about sleazy salespersons. I always get a big kick out of them, but this is a true fact, and I want you to think about this. Liars use more words. So the fewer words you can use, the better off you are, because if you come across as a fast talking person that wants to talk this person into yes before you've learned where they're coming from, you've lost the game. So there's several ways you can lose the game: by losing your temper, losing your positive attitude, and by just using too many words, which I think a lot of agents do. Do use their name, but don't overuse their name. If their name is Sam, it's not Sam and Jane. And then in the next minute, Sam and Jane will remember this. If you use it, 2 times is probably too many. I think once is probably enough. So the people that you will be negotiating with, when you go to their house and say you're negotiating with a buyer or seller, there's 3 basic types of people. One is the accommodator. And they think that time means relationship, and they really want to take apart everything. You might call them the engineer type. The analyst is more the engineer type. The analyst is the kind of person that's more like an engineer. He thinks time is something that he's got to study. He's going to study every angle of a situation, and he goes very slow, very analytically. I used to say about one of my children who was temperamented this way, we needed to send him the dinner menu 3 days in advance before he could make a decision. And I'm sure you've got people like that in your life. So that's an analyst. The second type of person that you might be negotiating with is called the accommodator, and they're very social. Some people in the disc would call them a high I. They want to please, they want a win-win situation, and they'll do a lot of excess chit chat that won't get you anywhere if you let that go. And then the final person that you meet a lot of times across the table is somebody that's very assertive. And with them, time is money. They want everything kind of black and white. They want it fast. They want to get it perfect. Getting it perfect actually is not as important to them as getting it done, checking it off the list. So they don't have the ability, this is very important, they don't have the ability to listen to you until they're certain that they have been thoroughly heard and listened to. And that takes your silence. So I hope these hints on negotiation have helped you some. They've certainly helped me. It makes us slow down. And I'd say if we had to do anything in this COVID, past COVID, wherever we are environment, this business environment, one of the biggest things that could help us is just to slow down when it comes to negotiation. Always have a beginner's mindset. We all have got blind sides. Remember the story about high level negotiations. Sometimes they have 2 or 3 people listening to the same presentation so that they can negotiate from a point of power. And speaking of power, everybody has hopes and dreams, and don't be the one that crashes their hopes and dreams, because I hope you have big hopes and dreams. I mean, we all at some point in our life believe we are capable of the extraordinary. And extraordinary has really been good to me in real estate. I love this business. I've got a passion for it. I'd love to help you in the industry. I want you to push hard for what you believe you can accomplish. If I can help you in any way, just email me, get in touch with me. And if you want the notes on negotiation, just send me a message and I'll send them to you. Thanks for stopping by today. Take care. Bye-bye.